If you've gotten Chinese takeout with a Calgarian, you've definitely heard about how ginger beef was invented here. And that's not the only food or drink we lay claim to. The Caesar, that beloved mix of clamato juice and vodka, it's usually claimed as a YYC original. Dan Clapson co-wrote the book, literally on food from this part of the country. It's a cookbook called Prairie. The name probably tells you where those recipes are from. And he's a food writer and columnist too, here in studio with me. Hi, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So let's start with the Caesar. I know you've been behind the bar a few times yourself, I'm sure, and you've drank a few Caesars in your time. Tell me the story of this drink.
So it was invented famously in 1969 at a hotel that's no longer there in downtown Calgary. It's currently the Westin. But there was a bartender by the name of Walter, and he came up with this drink, which was essentially a spin on a Bloody Mary, which would have been still a famous drink today, but back then the most commonly ordered drink. So his twist was that he added clam juice into the mix as well as some spices, and then the Caesar was allegedly born.
Okay, allegedly. So is there dispute over the Caesar coming from Calgary?
In this particular example, I guess no. Let's just say firm 1969. Walter, he did it. Like, let's close that chapter. But a lot of food and drink origins can be a little bit murky. So I'm predispositioned to always say allegedly with literally everything I say.
Somebody could easily be like, "Oh, well, I actually put clamato juice in my vodka 2 years before he did it."
Exactly. So yeah.
I just always have to stop at clam juice because, like, I realize clamato juice is very popular. Clam juice is a thing, but there's just something about the idea that you're taking fish water and being like, yum, let's add this to vodka.
Well, I think the reason why that was sort of a game changer, or still is with this cocktail, is that it definitely adds that factor of umami into the drink. And that's something that Bloody Marys don't always have necessarily on how they're prepared. So that, I think, fundamentally is would have set Caesars apart way back when. These days, I will say out of all the iconic Canadian food and drink, I do think globally the Caesar is probably the most famous Canadian food or drink item. So I think it's kind of cool that it's actually from Calgary.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back a little bit to what you said and that word umami. Mm-hmm.
I know an obnoxious food word or two in here, you know. So
I know what umami is from having done previous food-based stories.
Yes.
I tend to cover food a lot. How would you describe umami to someone who doesn't know what that means?
So it's sort of like that. You can't quite put your finger on it. Sixth taste, the sixth sense, sort of. You know, when you eat something and it tastes so completely full. You know, it's like sour, it's salty, it's a little bit sweet, it's everything plus a little bit more. That's umami.
So it's like meat and meat accessories as a taste?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
What makes this drink so popular?
Aside from hangovers, sure. Well, I don't know. Like, it definitely gets some of its roots from a Bloody Mary, which is commonly associated with brunch or hangovers or both. But aside from that, I don't know. I think that we're looking at the brand that makes it. Obviously, a lot of millions and millions of marketing dollars go into it as well to make it an iconic Canadian drink. So there's definitely that factor. But people are always looking for something that's their own, whether it's in their own country or their region or their city. So I feel like this was something that resonated clearly with the entire country over the decades. And now here we are today. And who doesn't love a Caesar except for you, I guess?
Yeah, except for me and Americans, I suppose. They always stick with the Bloody Mary, it seems. Why do you think the Bloody Mary is more popular in the States?
Well, it's fundamentally invented there, so that it's been around longer. But I will also say I do prefer Bloody Marys over Caesar, so I'm definitely leaning your way a little bit. But I find the garnish game is also better in the States. I really, really do. But that's a whole nother aspect to this drink. When you are in key tourist destinations in the States that Canadians go to, I do find that clamato mix is now readily available. So if you're in places like Nashville, in Palm Springs, pretty much anywhere in California, actually, you can access clamato quite easily. So I do feel like we've really put some pressure on the States to also serve Caesars.
Yeah, altered some drink supply chains there. Okay, let's switch gears from beverages briefly because ginger beef is the other one that Calgarians always brag about. And we heard about it earlier in the podcast. It started here. Tell me what you know about ginger beef.
So ginger beef, they don't really have an exact year when it was invented. Obviously, it's tied to the Silver Inn in Calgary. What I will say about ginger beef is that I think sometimes that we ourselves in this part of Canada think it's more widely available than it is. I think sometimes if you go east, like Ontario or further out to the East Coast, this dish is not on Western Canadian or Western Chinese, restaurant menus. And a lot of people over there don't really know what it is unless they've been to this part of Canada.
Yeah, it drove me crazy. I lived in Toronto for quite a while, and I could never find ginger beef. But like, I grew up in Edmonton, have lived in Calgary for quite a while, and here it's on every restaurant menu that even has like something slightly Asian-ish, right? Like it's everywhere here. And then I get to the East, and you get this look of like, what? Like they might have like ginger sauce, and then you get
something similar, but it's not quite the same. You know, it's not that semi-dried beef that's been coated and fried and then tossed in the sauce. So yeah, it's definitely something that I would say is more regional than national.
This could be an impossible question to answer. And if you don't know, that's okay. But do you have any theories as to why it hasn't spread across the country the way other things have?
I mean, I do think that that's tough to answer. It's not that it's not delicious, because I feel like we all know it's very, very tasty. I do think that different pockets of different styles of restaurants across Canada probably have their own regional specialties. Like I think I know that for a fact based on where I dine. You've been to Edmonton. Edmonton has a very famous fried prawn and canned peaches and condensed milk dish.
Yeah,
which
I'm not
you
a fan
cannot
of that
find
one
here.
either. Don't go looking for it if you're listening to this. Sorry, Edmonton folks.
You know, and so I think that they're very proud of that, and it's a very popular dish. But you're not going to find it even if you're in Kelowna or Vancouver or something. You might find it on the odd menu, but it's certainly not as common. So I think that depending on where you are, there's maybe just a regional specialty, and that I think fundamentally is what ginger beef is.
Yeah, I will say when we found ginger beef at one place when I lived in Toronto, and everyone I knew who was from Alberta, we were all like. I'm going to age myself here. We were texting each other using like T9 on our flip phones. But it's like, oh my God, you can get ginger beef at this place.
Which is 2005 or 6 for
timestamp. For the children listening.
It's a long time ago.
We used the party line to send Morse code to each other about ginger beef. I want to talk about your cookbook for 2 seconds here, because it has all recipes from the prairies. Is there anything in there that you'd be like, that's a Calgary thing?
I mean, I think the most interesting thing about the prairies comes down more so to ingredients as opposed to iconic dishes. I mean, there's not that many iconic dishes or drinks, even in America, let alone in Canada. So I don't think you can really build a book around iconic dishes and drinks. But yeah, in terms of ingredients, like in Alberta, I think people are always really surprised to know that we are the biggest honey producing province in the entire country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We produce the majority of the country's honey, which people might not know. So, we try and like touch on points like that throughout the book. And obviously here we're huge for wheat and barley production, things like that.
I want to come back to the Caesar just to wrap this up, because as I've said, I really dislike them. But I haven't had one in like 15 years.
Okay.
So do I need to give Clamato juice another try?
I mean, I think so.
All right.
I mean, why not?
Let's do it. We've got cans of like, it's the OG, Mott's Clamato Caesar.
Here we go. I mean,
it smells so tomato-y.
No, not for you?
No. Well, if any coworkers want Caesar,
a lightly sipped can of Clamato.
Yum. I'm so sorry to everyone listening who loves these. Dan Clapson, Caesar lover.
Caesar sort of lover. Yeah.
Caesar expert.
Yeah, sure.
Ginger beef expert and food expert. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
You ever wonder why Calgary is obsessed with quadrants? Does this city truly have the Queen of Costco living here? And apparently, people feed coyotes. We'll tell you those stories and more on This is Calgary.